So it's well known that Hoyoverse has made other games than Genshin. There's Honkai Impact 3rd, Tears of Themis, and most recently Honkai Star Rail. You've probably seen it on an ad, or seen it ranking as one of the highest earning gacha games at the moment, but is it even good? There's loads of people getting into the game, but should you get into it? This was a question I was also asking myself, so to answer it, I played it myself, and I gotta say I am very shocked with my findings. I expected the game to turn out one way, and legitimately it turned out the complete opposite way in the best way possible. So in this video, I'll share my review of Star Rail, talking about how it's better and worse than Genshin, while answering whether it's worth your time. So let's start off this review with the game's story. Star Rail begins by introducing Kafka and Silverwolf. These two are what are called Stellaron hunters. Stellarons are these objects that hold massive power. This power is able to affect entire planets, causing a certain planet to go into basically a new ice age. These devices, of course, are very dangerous, so Kafka and Silverwolf are infiltrating a space station to retrieve it. As they're doing so, the space station is attacked by space monsters called the Antimatter Legion, who are the followers of a particular god in the game. After fighting through waves, the two finally find the Stellaron. Yet instead of retrieving it, they insert it into an empty body, which is now the main character you play. There's also some unmentioned deep mystery between Kafka and the main character. You'll seek to unveil this mystery, all while saving planets from the negative effects of Stellarons, exploring space, new areas, planets, and fighting all kinds of monsters and grand scale bosses. As for what I think of the story, I'd say it's decent. I was interested in the story, particularly the storyline of the planet you reach right after you get off the space station, but it wasn't that engaging. The storyline itself was actually really good, but the way it was executed I wasn't a big fan of. I think it could have been a lot better, but even so I think this should be expected. The story is in its initial phase and still building everything, and I guess the writers are getting a feel for the story's game. Even with Genshin, the story off the get-go wasn't that good in my opinion. I wasn't much into the game's story in Mondstadt, but once I got to Liyue, I was much more interested. And actually right now I've just reached the Liyue, or Chinese-inspired planet of Star Rail, so I'm hoping that just like Genshin, this is when I get hooked into the story. Now segueing to the actual gameplay systems and progression of Star Rail, this was something I was quite interested in. So as you're progressing through the story and doing missions, you'll earn XP. With this XP, you'll gain higher ranks for more rewards, unlock more content, and play more difficult content. While you're progressing, Star Rail also has the sort of chapter book in Genshin which it calls Operation Briefing, in addition to a free and paid battle pass. So if you've played Genshin, you'll immediately feel familiar with Star Rail. Star Rail takes the already good progression of Genshin and pastes it into their game, which isn't at all a bad thing. It's actually nice since you understand what's going on instead of struggling with the new system. Speaking of adopted features, events make a return into Star Rail. I didn't much play events in Star Rail since I was too low a level to play them, plus I was spending most of my time actually just leveling up my units, but for the photography and combat event I played, they seem to be the exact same as they are in Genshin. You play for a few minutes, doing something not particularly difficult, and you get a reward. It's the same old stuff, but what is unique is that Star Rail's events have a really good feature that Genshin's doesn't, which is that they are not time gated. Like I mentioned, I didn't actually play most of the events, yet it's not as though I've missed them and I'm never going to be able to play them again. Instead, incomplete events go to a different part of the events tab, where I can still access them and play them. Now, I believe you may not be able to get all the rewards if the event is done late, like I think you're not able to get the light cones that they give out, but other than this, if I'm right about it, you should be able to get most rewards. On the topic of time gate, the resin in this game also isn't time gated. It's not like Genshin where if you're at 160 and you don't use that resin, you don't retain any of the resin you missed out on. For Star Rail, you actually retain that missed resin. It's stored into a different category and you're able to use it whenever you like. This is a big upgrade from Genshin since you don't have that constant fear of missing out. You're not going crazy that, oh man, I'm at 160 resin, I gotta log in. Star Rail's like, you're at max resin? Don't worry about it. You still keep that resin. We know you're a real life person with real life responsibilities. You can't always be playing. You play when you want to, and we'll be waiting for you. Alright, take care, man. Spend some money on the game, eh? Okay, take care. See you later. We've so far gone over 2 positives. Let's now balance the scale and talk about the gameplay system that's gonna turn away a lot of players. The combat of Star Rail. This is something you're definitely gonna want to stay for. So going into Star Rail, this was the thing I was most interested in, since to me, combat is very important in games. This is where I have a good chunk of fun in games. Yet Star Rail has taken some questionable liberties with their combat. Unlike its predecessors, which had real-time, free-flow combat, Star Rail has turn-based combat. Some of you probably just threw up right now, and I get it, I do. I think free-flow combat is miles, friggin' galaxies better than turn-based combat. I do not like turn-based combat. I find it boring, restricting, and slow. But when I played Star Rail's combat, I actually don't hate my life. Now here's the thing. I don't want to say I like Star Rail's combat, but I definitely don't hate it. There's times where I actually look forward to fighting, and times where I don't want to fight, which has never been the case for Genshin. But overall, my view of Star Rail's combat does lean to the more positive side. The reason being is that Hoyoverse has made certain changes to the system of its combat to make it more enjoyable. Off the rip, characters' bursts make a return, which I really like. I've always really liked the bursts from Genshin, and seeing them in Star Rail definitely adds to my enjoyment. Some bursts are really cool, like my current favorite is Japard's.
Forged in ice, never falters.
Next, there's a fast mode that greatly increases the pace of combat. This makes things much more engaging, and since things are faster, you attack more and spend less time watching the enemy hit you. But most importantly, the thing that's drawn me to Star Rail's combat is the way it allows you to take control of the battle and attack enemies as you would in free-flow combat. It's not like other turn-based where you just watch the enemies hit you, you hit them back, and repeat. Instead, there's certain things in the game that allow you to recreate the feeling of real-time combat where you're constantly hitting enemies and manipulating the battle to your favor. For example, you can cast a unit's burst at any time you like, even if an enemy's turn is coming up. This breaks the flow of turn-based since you attack whenever you want and whoever you want, like in real-time combat. Furthermore, there's specific units that have this mechanic where they're able to attack multiple times in one turn. For example, Scylla. If you defeat an enemy with her, you can attack with her once more. This can be spammed where, legit in one whole turn, you can attack with her around 3 or 4 times, giving you the feeling of free flow since again, you're attacking multiple times without waiting for the enemy to attack you or waiting for your turn. So though the turn-based combat in this game is definitely not as good as the free-flow combat of Genshin, Star Rail does implement some changes that make their combat feel like Genshin. This makes their system of combat much more bearable and enjoyable, and in my opinion, it's the best system of turn-based combat I've played. But beyond these specific elements, I gotta admit, turn-based combat is a fair bit strategic. At least it is for difficult enemies. Since you have a limited number of skill points and attacks you can deal in an instance, you have to think through and plan your attacks. Like, I had to fight Japard in a mode, and I legit fought this guy for 30 minutes. Yes, it was long, but it was intense since there was so many times he could have wiped out my team, but he couldn't because I was diligent and carefully thinking out my moves. So overall, my thoughts on the combat are positive. Would it be better if it was real-time combat? 1000%. But I think it's good enough to where you should give it a try. There's enough good changes to where, even though you may not like turn-based combat, you can come to like it. Now let's finish the topic of Star Rail's combat with something very important closely linked to combat. Endgame. This is a point of drama still plaguing Genshin Impact, and I'm very happy to announce that Star Rail does have Endgame. You heard it right, folks. The turn-based game that's been out for less than a year has Endgame off the get-go, while the almost 4-year-old Genshin is still working on implementing permanent content. God, I love Genshin, man. The endgame of Star Rail is called Simulated Universe. It's a roguelike where you have a set of characters that you use to fight waves of monsters, ultimately reaching the end to fight a difficult boss. Sounds very familiar, huh? If it wasn't already obvious, this was another feature of Star Rail that really pulled me in, since now I know that if I do play this game in the long term, I'll be taken care of. I won't have the experiences I've had in Genshin, where there's legitimately nothing to do, there's nothing to play, nothing to strive towards or work towards, so ultimately there's no reason to pull units or min-max my characters, making Resin and Primos useless. The game feels empty since I've basically done all there is to do. And beyond achieving anything new, say if I just wanna have fun fighting with my units, I can't even do that since I'm out of resin, or I've gotta wait for the 2-week timer on the Abyss to reset. Now that Star Rail actually has Endgame, there will always be something for you to do. You can run through the simulated universe and redeem all the rewards open to you, and even then, if you still feel like playing, you can, since there's so many levels to play, of which get progressively harder. So you're given a reason to continue grinding and stay engaged with the game. The even crazier news is that this isn't even the only form of Endgame Star Rail has. Next to the simulated universe, there's the mode called Memory of Chaos, which is essentially the spiral abyss of Genshin. Then, yes, there's one more mode, I'm not even kidding, where you're fighting hordes of enemies to gain points to redeem for Stellar Jades. The mode is called Pure Fiction, which should be added to the game soon. I know Endgame isn't a topic that's important to all players, but topics that are important to everyone are the topics of the gacha and the grinding of Stellar Jades and characters. So let's get into this next. The way the gacha works in this game is basically a copy and paste of Genshin's, which is really good. You wish for around 75 wishes, and in worst case is 90, where then the 50-50 occurs, and every 10 pull you make in this process results in a 5-star. For the grinding of Stellar Jades, I first want to mention a special banner I was able to use when I started the game. If you wish 50 times, you'll get a guaranteed 5-star unit. I don't know if this banner is still being held for new players, but if it is, it's an easy and cheap way to start off your account and pull a 5-star. For the actual grind, there's multiple ways to earn Stellar Jades. There's essentially your commissions, which instead of being 4 daily tasks to do, are now a set of different activities you need to complete in order to earn points, and if you earn 500 points, you earn the max number of Stellar Jades you can earn. There's also events, the simulated universe, Memory of Chaos, story or open world missions, achievements, and treasure. Lastly, like Genshin, there's codes that are given in update live streams, as well as the various exchanges you can make in the shop. And on the topic of the rate of Stellar Jades you can earn, from what I've seen as well as the feedback of those further into the game, you'll roughly be earning the same amount of Stellar Jades in a month as you would Primo Gems in Genshin. So per patch, as a free-to-play player, you can expect to earn around 70 wishes. Now for the grinding of characters, it's again the exact same system in Genshin. You'll be leveling up different aspects of units while getting good artifacts for them. I have 2 problems with this. First, with the sort of second set you can put on characters, though it will allow for more ways to build units, which I do really like, this does mean more instances of artifact hell, where all you're doing is trying to get a specific artifact, but you get everything else other than that. Additionally, with the grinding system being the exact same as Genshin, Star Rail at times doesn't even feel like a new or different game. It just feels like Genshin, but turn-based and with a different story. This is a bit disappointing since we've been doing the same old stuff for years. It would have been really nice if Star Rail had a drastic change to its grinding that sets it apart from Genshin. Overall, my final thoughts on the game is that I do like it. Though I'm not invested into the game as I am with Genshin, Star Rail does have enough good elements and things I'm looking for to where I'm interested in the game, and I'm definitely going to be continuing to play it. With all that being said, my take on whether you should try Star Rail is that if you like turn-based games, then you should try it. The game does enough positives to where it's good, and I do recommend it. For the game to be overall positive and have a playstyle you like, I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Alternatively, I'd recommend the game if you liked Genshin, since this game is very similar to Genshin. So if you liked it, you probably will like this game too. On the other hand, if you don't like turn-based combat or like Genshin, then I wouldn't recommend trying it. If you really hate this combat, it is very likely that you won't enjoy the game, since you'll spend a good amount of time playing the game in this manner. Also, if you didn't like Genshin, then you're probably not going to enjoy this game either, since again it is very similar to it. Well everyone, that is my review of Star Rail. I hope you enjoyed my review and found it insightful. If you did, please let me know what you thought about it, as well as if you're going to be trying out the game. Would you also like to see more videos of Star Rail? Please let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, please do like and subscribe. And with that, thank you all for watching, take care, and thank you all once again.